House of Commons Speaker Anthony Rota will meet with House leaders of all parties today, according to CTV News sources. The meeting comes as some opposition leaders continue to call for him to step down after he mistakenly invited a man who fought for the Nazis into Parliament. Rota apologized yesterday for welcoming and recognizing Yaroslav Hunka to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's address last Friday. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau called the incident deeply embarrassing for the nation. New Democrats and Bloc Québécois are calling for Rota's resignation.
I just want to make it clear that it was my decision and my decision alone. This was a constituent who wanted to see wanted to be here, and I recognized him. It was my decision, and I apologize profusely. I cannot tell you how regretful it is. And it may not be good enough for some of you, and for that I apologize.
On his way into morning cabinet meetings, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau commented on what may be next for Rota.
As I said yesterday, this was deeply embarrassing for the House and for Canada. It is a good thing that Speaker Rota apologized personally, and I'm sure he's reflecting now on how to ensure the dignity of the House going forward.
Well, joining us now is Michael Levitt. He's the president and CEO of the Friends of Simon Wiesenthal Center and a former parliamentarian. Thank you so much for joining us, Michael. You know, and I know you know Anthony Rota, and I'm sure most people know him as a good and decent man, but many good and decent people make monumental mistakes. And I'm curious, is this mistake irredeemable?
Yes, I think in the context of him staying on as the Speaker of the House of Commons, which is a prestigious, important position which safeguards the sanctity of the House of Commons, one of our nation's, most critical institutions. I think it does. I think it compromises him, and I was sad to see that neither on Friday nor yesterday, given the wave of calls, that he has not yet made the decision to step down.
Would you be surprised if his resignation doesn't land on the Prime Minister's desk at some point today?
I would be surprised, but again, we saw the most awkward of exchanges yesterday during question period, beginning with another apology. And you said it at the beginning, Jamie. Anthony Rota is a good and decent man. I know him. I was in Parliament with him for a number of years. But that doesn't change the fact that there needs to be accountability for this. And some mistakes are so grievous that they aren't redeemable. And Friends of Simon Wiesenthal Center, the organization that I represent, we have just actually put out a public call for the Speaker to resign.
I want to talk about the magnitude of this mistake and not only domestic but international embarrassment. You know, not only has this deeply offended so many people within the Jewish community, Holocaust survivors, especially finding this news on the day of the holiest day in the Jewish calendar, but also the international impact on how our international allies look at, the incompetence behind this decision and lack of due diligence. Talk about the impact that this could have internationally, and also how this could potentially be used as propaganda by the Russians.
Not potentially be used as propaganda by the Russians. It is being used as propaganda by the Russians. They jumped all over this on Sunday and yesterday. The Kremlin issued statements. This has major implications for Canada's standing, major implications. And, both at home and abroad, you're right. The news that has been going around the world is of a Nazi standing up in Canada's Parliament. The situation, the compromised position it puts Volodymyr Zelensky and President Zelensky, a Jew who has spoken out against honoring these type of Ukrainian units in Ukraine in recent years. He's been on the record in objecting to any sort of recognition of these units. It is just beyond the pale that this happened. It compromised every one of the members of the House of Commons. And the sad reality is that Speaker Rota needs to step down. And beyond that, we need good and clear answers of how this happened and how we can assure that it will not happen again. And we're recommending that the Parliamentary Procedure and House Affairs Committee, known as PROC, a parliamentary committee, hold public hearings and get to the bottom of this, how it happened, and let's make sure Canadian Parliament is never put in this position again.
Well, Michael, you ask a very good question, how it happened. There is a history when you look at some certain situations with the Liberal government, whether it was the Prime Minister in India a long time ago inviting a convicted terrorist to dine with him. We also had recently, at the time, Diversity Minister Hussain and the Liberal government handing out hundreds of thousands of dollars to a vile racist and anti-Semite, Laith Maruth, to be an anti-racist consultant. There is a history of royally dropping the ball when it comes to this kind of due diligence. So you talked about these kind of, how does this happen? I guess my question is for you, what needs to be done when it comes to the protocol, when it comes to doing a better job of vetting these individuals who are being brought into our most sacred of institutions, like the House of Commons, or even if they're traveling abroad and dining with people who could potentially be a convicted terrorist?
Well, whatever the current protocols are, it's very clear in this situation and in prior situations. And I know, for example, because we were very involved on the Laith Marouf fallout, that there has been action. Is it enough? Well, we hope we'll never see a situation like that kind of money being doled out to somebody with such vile views, not just of Jews, but of others. But as it goes to the situation of dignitaries coming into Canadian Parliament, as President Zelensky did, and the vetting of these types of situations, it's not clear. We've heard that it's through the Speaker's office. We've heard that calls from the Conservatives, for example, that the Prime Minister's office should have known. We all need answers to this. We need answers to what happened here, but also how we ensure it never happens again.
Michael, I have to wrap this up, but very quickly, what's your take on Liberal MP Karina Gould asking that those comments be removed from the record at the House of Commons?
We must not and cannot cover up history. This was an awful moment for Canadian Parliament, but unfortunately, when we go to erase it, we take it out of memory, and those words never forget. Let's have this on the Hansard record so that it stands as a very dark stain that will encourage us to make sure this is never repeated.
And Michael, just one last question. Given the fact that Simon Wiesenthal was a Nazi hunter, and we're now finding out that there is a Nazi living among us, does anything need to be done in terms of investigating this individual and possible war crimes?
Well, let me just say, on the subject of Simon Wiesenthal, in the latter years of his life, when he was traveling the world speaking out on prosecution of Nazis, he actually refused to come to Canada in his later years because he was so upset at the laxness of our approach to pursuing Nazi war criminals. He refused to enter the country because he felt that Canada had absolutely dropped the ball. I think there needs to be a long, hard look at what happened in our history. We've seen it with the Oberlander case. We've seen it with so many other cases. Again, Canada has an awful track record in terms of bringing accountability to those that had blood on their hands during World War II for Jews and many other victims.
Michael Levitt, President and CEO of the Friends of Simon Wiesenthal Center, we appreciate your time. Thank you.